To head into our panel discussion for this evening. Without further ado, let me introduce to you the theme for this panel discussion. It is new trends in the RPA and intelligent automation space. Now, I'm sure this is a topic that we're all keen to learn more about. And as we bring on our experts on a common platform, let me first and foremost introduce you to our moderator, who will then take us through the rest of the session. Our moderator is Innovation Lead, Branding and Communications Lead, and Operations Manager at Donnelly Sri Lanka Chapter. Let me now hand over control to Srikantan Jayaraja.
Thank you, Trishma. Right, so before we move into the panel conversation, so very good evening to all the ladies and gentlemen who have joined with us today. Let me quickly debrief a bit in terms of intelligent automation before we get into the panel. So anyone on the RPA journey understands that one of the things missing from the current automation is intelligence. And this is not just the ability to make random off-the-cuff decisions. It includes any action of seeing, hearing, understanding, communicating, and making decisions. So as Professor Leslie Wilcox mentioned, if RPA takes the robo out of a human, intelligent automation puts a human into the robo. Nicely said. So intelligent automation makes use of many complementary technologies. I think throughout the day, I would just happen to listen to a couple of conversations. We have been listening to various other alternatives like machine learning, artificial intelligence, data analytics. All put together, these capabilities include the kinds of work humans do, like looking at an invoice, reading an email, deciding to approve a loan application, communicating with the customer. So it's these and many more actions that make most of our current processes. And this is why most important tasks cannot be automated with RPA alone. So with that, so let's hear from the experts from the panel that we have today. So I'll start with introducing the first panel member, Dilini De Alwis, Chief Operating Officer, Software Solutions and Services at johnkeellsit, Assistant Vice President at John Keells Holdings PLC, a dynamic corporate professional with 25 plus years of experience in the field of information technology, driving strategy and building high performance teams, establishing practices of intelligent automation, data analytics, and app modernization. And she holds extensive experience in working with local and international clients. A very strong believer of keeping things simple and helping companies in digital transformation journey. We warmly welcome you, Dilini. Thanks for joining with us.
Hi, thank you for having me, Srikant.
It's our pleasure. Next is Johan Anderson, Head of Intelligent Automation Services at Ernst & Young, Sri Lanka. He's an expert in process standardization, process improvement, excellence, and he holds tremendous experience in banking, finance, operations, and trade, leading various accounting transformations on IFRS implementations around, managing transformation projects using Agile framework, and he's also part of Global Exchange Program Servicing in EY UK, working on finance transformation and accounting engagements. It is our pleasure to have you with us, Johan.
Thank you very much, Srikant, for having me.
Next, we have Suren Nanekara. He is the Director of ICT at Move. He is responsible for providing strategic technology direction to overall technology and product development at Move. He also worked in numerous business domains and has led highly focused teams to deliver tech solutions for startups, as well as established enterprises alike. And Suren has engaged with tech startups in Europe and the US, while his precious engagements include working as CTO, Product Development Director, a tech consultant, and advisor. Thank you for being with us today, allocating some time to it. Right. Next, and last not but the least, we have Sherwin Jans, Practice Head Digital Transformation at eGuardian, a digital transformation professional with over 6 years of experience, coming from an extensive finance and accounting background, an application consultancy covering multiple business industries, including freight and logistics, retail distribution, back office, finance, shared services, and BFSI. Warm welcome to you, Sherwin. Right.
Thanks, Shrikant.
So that's our panel. As you can see, they come with quite a lot of experience. So let me not waste any minute, quickly jump into the questions. So we have few questions and we encourage audience to shoot questions to the panel audience as we go through. I believe Trishma will bring that up to us. So the first question I have is for Dilini. So Dilini, from your experience, what has been the observation into various RPA implementations and journey so far?
Yes. So just to give some insights into my observations. So the most successful automation projects have been projects which are in alignment to digital strategy of the organization. So which includes automation strategy as well in the digital transformation strategy. So this will help us to identify what are the technologies and what we should do and which technology should be using when, right? So that has been one of the successful areas, and also further to facilitate organizations to streamline the operations, right? We have seen that so many operations are streamlined when you are trying to automate. So that is another learning that we have seen. And also the strategy which we follow generally with our customers is to understand, to get into a discovery phase with them so that we help them to understand what automation is and how to select processes for automation. So that has added value in taking that journey. Then also we have seen getting into awareness sessions with our customers, which helps them to onboard the entire organization into automation, because most of the time they don't know what they are embarking into, and when they are told, they know what to expect, right? So it's generally an 8-step process of automation, starting from discovery, then into at the end it is to go into hypercare and then to maintain. And so that entire cycle, they understand better when they are also informed about it. So the other things that we have seen is when people are more open to use cases which will give them a better experience than just limiting themselves into RPA, where you can link up with data analytics, AI, and then moving on to RPA. So that adds more value and to the business, because then you can see that it brings the benefits that needs to achieve. So on. These are some of my learnings and experience. So yeah, over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I love the discovery piece of it, because that's where the whole definition of what needs to be automated and where they can head towards can be answered. So thank you. Appreciate that. So I have another question for Johan. So Johan, with your experience, right, extensive experience that you had, and you have been on both sides on the fence as RPA vendor as well as a client. So what expertise could you share in specific to return on investment for any RPA or intelligent automation related initiatives to the audience?
Okay, Shrikant, I have not been a client, first of all. I'm part of the implementation team, so not really from a client point. So just want to get that explained. So when you talk about RPA and intelligent automation, first of all, I think people seem to confuse RPA with intelligent automation. I think the major difference is RPA is a technology. In other words, you don't have to write in scripts where the coding works through drag and drop. While intelligent automation is a methodology where you combine multiple technologies, RPA being one of them. So when you talk about ROI saving, I think Dilini already answered my question by talking about discovery, services, and so on. So Ernst & Young, being a big 4 player, is a large automation implementer around the world at a global level, and we partner with so many RPA softwares. So when we do actually start an automation journey with a client, I I use the word journey because it's not really an implementation exercise when you really try to understand. I think what Dilini said was 100% correct. You need to start it with the discovery, which is identifying ROI potential. So ROI potential is not only specific for RPA technology. If you talk about intelligent automation, you combine technologies like machine learning, OCR, which is optical character recognition, and so many other technologies as well. So then when we do a discovery session, we don't only do it from an automation point of view. It's much larger because we try to improve the entire transformation journey at a client. So we have multiple frameworks coming from Ernst & Young globally that we use to identify what is the best processes to pick, what frameworks to use. And also we design frameworks based on what the clients want. For example, certain clients might say, I want you to select a process that only generates a ROI of 2 FTEs. So FTE means full-time equivalent, which means if you take man hours, one equivalent or full-time equivalent means a man working 8 hours a day for the rest of the year. So this company wants to identify a process that saves 2 men or saves 2 FTs. That's the saving of 2 humans working for the rest of the day, working 8 hours a year. So like that, we can build parameters and identify processes which are ideal for automation. And also, I think if you were listening to some of the speakers, they spoke about why automation projects fail. One of the biggest reasons why it fails, and also Ernst & Young has done their own research on it, is because you identify the wrong process. So the main reason for you to automate is ROI. If there's no ROI, there's no point in you automating. So if you automate the wrong process and you do not generate the ROI you require, the whole investment, the whole journey becomes just a waste of time. So this automation exercise or this discovery exercise avoids that major pitfall. And that's also one of Ernst & Young's key frameworks or key methods that we use to really ensure that we have selected the right process and also it's in line with the customer's expectations.
Perfectly said, Johan. I'm in total agreement. The right processes, and then it's not an implementation, it's an entire journey, and we'll have to just tag it with what Dilini said, discovery. So good, essence to kind of look at and remember before we start moving into any automation initiative. Thanks for that. Right. So my next question is for Suren. So Suren, how has been the trend of RPA journey so far in Sri Lanka from your viewpoint? And could you also kind of specifically highlight the learning so far through the journey from what you see? And I think you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, it was blocking me.
No problem.
So my learnings in the Sri Lankan context has been that, of course, we all know that digital transformation is the buzzword these days. Everybody wants to engage with digital transformation, but the impression most of the business leaders have is digital transformation is RPA, and RPA is digital transformation. That's what I've seen, that a lot of people, when we talk about digital transformation, the first thing some people ask is, can we get RPA into the organization, even without looking at what we need to do, right? So then the reality that settles in is that they go through the analysis, they go through the the design phases, and when they get the cost of license and the implementation, it really doesn't make sense from an ROI standpoint for them to do an RPA, because still from a Sri Lankan context, it's still expensive, right? You have to pay a license, you have to get an implementation going, even though the volumes are high and so on. Second aspect is that the selected processes. I think Johan rightly said there are certain key aspects that we need to look at when we are selecting a process for an RPA. One is the maturity. One, whether the process. Secondly, whether the process has certain repetitive activities happening, or specifically design processes that happens in there. So there are so many more as well. So they pick a process, they do the implementation, and few months down the line, they see that implementation doesn't align with the reality. I have seen organizations that went through the RPA journey. did the payments, got the licenses, implemented. Few months down the line, they just throw it away. So it has become so much of a waste. So there's so much of enthusiasm, but when we look at the implementation, there's a lot of caution as well, especially when the ROI aspect or the cost aspects comes into light when it comes to the implementation.
Right. I certainly, I think that makes a point. Exorbitant licensing cost, but on the other side, yes, the right amount of attention at the beginning stages and selecting the right processes will make a lot of sense. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your views also. Right. So we have another. Sorry. Yeah. So we have another interesting question for Sherwin. So Sherwin, it's actually a statement and we want to kind of take your insights around that. So let me try to read that slowly because it's a little longer. With the rise of intelligent automation and the aid of cognitive automation tasks, such as supervision of internal communication, customer queries, customized financial advice, deals, promotions, will get simpler, right? So companies will recognize the benefits of bringing together RPA and artificial intelligence to improve business performance. What are your thoughts, to the audience around this statement?
Thanks, Shrikanthan, first of all, for bringing that correction. And a very good evening to all the automation enthusiasts who are joining with this great initiative by Slasscom. Well, it is a very valid statement, Shrikanthan, because it is undoubtedly RPA together with AI can do wonders for organizational performance or business performance, as well as the innovation, right? So primarily, most of the things, if I grasped it correctly, we were talking about the customer service aspect, communications, deals, promotions, right? So most of these things, if you relate it to yourself also, right? If you are an organization, these queries, these communications, especially in this post-COVID era, has enhanced, right, to unbearable level, right? So in this particular context, everybody is overwhelmed with all these activities, right? So this is why most of the organizations are now trying to look at, okay, can we bring a conversational AI component to back it up, right? To provide information faster. People are revamping their website, they are providing more information so that that workload, that promotions, all the information can be quickly shared with the customers. Now, the benefit of incorporating AI, the cognitive aspect with RPA is actually, it is not only to provide the information aspect as well, but to take it to the next level. Okay, so when a customer comes into the website, you identify through a chatbot agent, okay, what is his requirement? Okay, then afterwards, there is a process. So let's say this particular customer, and since we all are moving to a global world and we are working 24/7 almost, right? So this can come at a midnight, it can come in the early morning where there is no agent, right? So conversational AI as well as RPA can become so handy in terms of catering to this particular requirement. So not only by extracting or providing information, but taking those information and do the next steps of the process. It can be for banking and advisory, it can be for loan processing, as well as other important aspect, especially in terms of the performance is, if I elaborate it further, a human agent have a lot of queries when a particular customer or a particular inquiry comes. Okay, so that person needs to go through a lot of information, especially to do a right pitch as well as to provide a tailor-made solution. So we all talk about, okay, tailor-making the solutions, customizing it as the future business, right? So RPA along with AI helps the human agent to quickly summarize all this information and to provide a better solution in the most fastest time duration. So yes, this is how these call centers, this is how the banking and advisory, this is how most of the brokerage agents are now transforming along with RPA and AI.
Absolutely. And I have to say this, Sherwin, most of the time, I also do speak to these bots, which is very intelligent, and I've had my good times with them. And I have to say they have come a long way, compared to previous years. They actually talk to the point, right? Else they just go around and, throw a lot of other things. But I believe the machine learning has got better, and I totally agree with you. So thanks for sharing that. And we are going to get a little deeper into the complementary technologies. So I'm going to circle back to Dilini again. So Dilini, how could other complementary technologies to what Sherwin was speaking about, the data analytics, AI, and machine learning, and all the new trends actually harmonize with the RPA technology? Because we are talking about not this alone and that alone. We are talking about bringing things together to help an organization with a digital transformation. So how do you see that?
Yeah. Thanks, Srinkant, for that particular question, because I like the question actually. So just to give some insights along that lines. So just to say that, I mean, RPA on its own, I mean, we would agree that it's just generic, right? It will just perform a task and it will just process what is required to process. And also, like people, businesses will like RPA because of the fact that they can interact with the legacy systems. They don't have to rip it off, and they can keep getting the data that they want and manipulate the data and so on and so forth. But when we look at the combination of these technologies, right? Let me give an example. Like if I am to talk about, let's go into an example of a retail customer, a retail store, right? So which is like we all can connect to. So in that particular instance, say that if I'm able to understand the patterns of my customer, buying patterns of my customer, right? And then I'm able to push the promotions to my customers, right? Based on and personalizing it for their need.
Right.
I mean, we have changed the game there, right? We have made the business to be more proactive to the customer's need, and that experience that the customer gets is a personalized service, right? It's not just pushing all the promotions to him, where he will have to just, I mean, go through all the clutter to identify what he needs, right? So that is like enhancing the experience. So what happens when we integrate these technologies is that we give a better customer experience. And do you think that my customer will leave my store? No. Right? He will always be with me because of the fact I will be giving him more learnings from what I achieve, what I see from my data, and I will be pushing that accordingly. And I would be, I mean, servicing him at a personal level, right? So this is what I see that RPA together with other technologies can do, right? It's just that we are really slow in adapting to it, and it will take a lot of time for us to get there.
I cannot agree more. Yeah, absolutely. I think it becomes more powerful in terms of a digital transformation when you kind of put all these things together. And I like the precision marketing piece, like similar to precision agriculture. So thank you for those views. So we are going to take a little bit of deep dive into the same conversation with Johan. So Johan, organizations are leveraging RPA and combining it with these complementary technologies with process discovery, right, and process intelligence, process optimization, and process orchestration, and automating various tasks, right? So what are your views? Because we have all these various tools to really get into the process and to develop them to make it better. So how do you see that? Is that an actual benefit, or are we trying to confuse both?
I'm smiling because those topics are large topics. I could probably talk on each and every topic for hours. For example, process discovery, I have already explained, so I won't take much time on it. But you also spoke about process intelligence. Then you also spoke about process orchestration and process optimization. So I'll first tell you how Ernst & Young looks at transformation project delivery. So we see it as three phases. A normal tech company would only see RPA as a technology implementation project, but we see it as phase one being discovery, where we identify the right process. Phase 2 is where we do the transformation. So I think that is where the big four, I use big four just not to call out Ernst & Young itself, but big four in general is very specialized in, because when it comes to transforming a project, is only where you get this process improvement or process optimization. See, if you try to build a house, right, and if the foundation is not strong, the house could collapse. Same way, if you try to automate a process and you only focus on the technology implementation aspect of it, but you have not transformed the manual process into a digitized way. So transformation there is very important, because if you build the wrong to-be process, or the wrong process or you transform the process in an ineffective way, definitely your implementation would fail. That's another problem which organizations fail, because they forget the phase, the phase before the implementation, which is on transforming the process the right way. So sometimes we help companies before the implementation, first of all, to transform, to come up with the right process design document, to come up with the to-be process flows, and we get the management buy-in. Why is this important? Because if you forget what the customer wants and you do the transformation the way you think is right, in the end, the management might not agree to develop or to re-engineer the process in that manner. So your entire effort will be in vain. So it's always better to discuss with the clients, get their buy-in, because some changes they will want to do, some changes they won't do, because there might be impact on customer satisfaction. So that process improvement comes in with transformation. Then your other point on process intelligence, that's basically talking about cognitive technology, where you bring in tools like machine learning. I won't go towards AI, because AI is much more than intelligent automation, where you're integrating with solutions like IBM Watson and so on. So I think process intelligence by itself would add value. For example, you could do a classification regression program where you could classify good versus bad, say defaulting customers versus performing customers in banks, and there could be countless. So you don't really need to integrate that with RPA, because that can be performed using various data science tools. But the way I see it is RPA can be integrated with process intelligence, maybe to collect the data, because sometimes the data might be stored in so many different sources. You might not be able to collect it in one go or with one type of a tool, while RPA can access multiple platforms and get that data cleansed in the right format. So I think that's one place where you could probably integrate process intelligence with RPA. But apart from that, a common example of integrating machine learning with RPA is with OCR, where I think Sherwin is probably very common with this type of OCR technologies, where you try to identify the right documents to be selected. Because if you have thousands of different document formats and your bot is not smart enough to select the right data from each and every format, the entire project will fail. So that's a very common area of actually integrating this machine learning technology. And the final point on process orchestration, that's the most basic concept of RPA, and that's what specializes or takes RPA away from a basic scripting technology. So scripting is something like an Excel-based macro, which was done in the past, where you will automate your Excel process. But of course, you can't schedule it. You can't use it to deploy in multiple PCs. You can't get it to run multiple types of activities at the same time, and so on. So process orchestration is something like a control room, where if you have multiple processes that need to be scheduled, you could schedule it. And then at the scheduled time, the process could run. Plus, you could also use it to deploy it on multiple PCs, because it could be in a cloud. So I could be hundreds of miles away from my PC, and I could run the process through the cloud using this process orchestration. So I hope I have broken it down and answered all those specific points.
I think that was perfectly answered, Johan. I think we all had a better understanding in terms of how all of these different segments comes into play. And I like the fact that you mentioned, it's a very important point that you brought up in terms of, using the RPA to gather the data from different platforms in order to enable that, data analytics and process intelligence to better that all together. So thank you for sharing that. I think we have limited time, else so we can allow you to kind of elaborate on that, because it's a very interesting topic as well. This is the the prominent piece before you start on with any automation to kind of set the stage with the process piece, right? Thank you. So next is an interesting question that we have for Suren on the same lines. So machine learning and NLP, which is natural language processing, and optical character recognition, the OCR that we spoke about, and image recognition, embedded in intelligent automation platforms are empowering citizen developers. So this is something that we have heard, very recently. The least skilled in coding, like anyone who's having a little bit of amateur knowledge, would be able to develop certain automation tasks. So to achieve the digital workflow transformation and to elevate, the productivity levels and accelerate the work across the enterprises. So, what are your thoughts around these technologies? I think you're on mute again, Suren.
Yeah, that's wrong with my
now we can hear you.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Sorry. Yeah.
No problem.
So basically, RPA automation in its original form is basically to automate mundane tasks repetitively, but it did not have any cognitive ability to make decisions. So we were talking about supporting human workforces. With the introduction of AI, limited scope AI, where we can make the automation more intelligent, so that certain decision making can be done through the RPs, where the bots becomes the virtual workforces. So when this transformation, or when this scope expanded for RPA, what most of the AI products did, and as you all can see now, is that those products now offer their a knockdown version or a limited scope version of their capabilities. It may be machine learning, NLP, or optical character recognition, as an add-on or plugin for these most popular RPA platforms, right? So, and the beauty of this is most of these products, or almost all of these products, are available as no-code tools. Mainly
Right.
because the RPA platforms are also mostly low-code, no-code tools used by not so not so skilled software engineers or developers, right? Therefore, least skilled developers can easily use the integrated tools or these add-ons very easily. Installation is quite straightforward, and configuration is also mainly graphical. You just drag and drop things, you train the model, and even the training, most of the time these tools have predefined data sets for different domains, mostly the common domains, where you can use the data set, do the initial training, do the supervised learning, so to speak, and then put the model on a unsupervised learning model and do the deployment. So
Right.
if I share an example, few years back, when I was in a different engagement where we were selling RPA solutions, we actually did an automation for a foreign company that was dealing with a lot of invoices. It's a multi-million-dollar construction company. They have over 1,000+ vendors who supply different stuff to their ongoing construction projects. So they get a whole bunch of invoices that they need to put into their systems, and these invoice structures are very different. They will change stuff and so on. So one of my RPA developers was able to find a OCR product, a plugin that he installed and trained within 2 weeks and did the deployment. So he didn't have any AI background or any machine learning background or OCR background, but the tool is so easy to use, so easy to learn and integrate, that they did it in 2 weeks time, did the initial training with about 250 different invoices, and then uploaded it, deployed it successfully. So therefore, what I think is that these products, these AI products that are offered as add-ons and extensions to different automation platforms, are on the right track to help unskilled or less skilled developers to really grab the AI aspects into RPA, which is also a kind of like democratizing, so to speak, the AI domains as well, because it was a kind of focus towards a very niche AI developers, but now it is quite freely available towards less skilled developers to use certain capabilities of AI into intelligent automation.
Wow. I think that was a good story worth sharing. So what we are trying to mean is that when we look at these low code and no code platforms in future, uh, you know, SMEs within the organizations or anyone could kind of move forward and create their own automation tools. So will that also, kind of get them into buying these licenses? How does that work? They will have a license and they should be able to do it by themselves. Is it how it's going to work?
In the marketplaces, the license are available for them to buy, and then of course if you are building it to a different person, a different party, of course they will probably fund the license, but the cost adds on top of the standard RP license. Yep.
Right. Perfect. I think we just saw Trishma here. Anything, you have a message? How are we doing on time?
I think we're almost out of time. So perhaps if you would like to wrap up a bit, that will help very much.
Okay. Okay, that's okay. I think we covered the most important talking points that we really wanted to kind of take it to the audience. So thank you. I think to all the panelists for bringing in all of those insights into the RPA and complementary technologies, because we know that we have been there for some time, and now we got into this new intelligent automation space with various tools available in the market, right? So it's definitely, it will help the audience to understand what they should be looking for if they are trying to get into a digital transformation journey. So thank you for all those insights,